everything else is changing. Energy, like energy is most important, essential to have energy to turn on the light, to do everything. What will happen to energy?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
What will disappear?
Well, coal is going down.
Coal is going down.
You got to retrofit the ones you have. Now you've got coal here.
Yeah, a lot.
But you can retrofit them. You can take the CO2 waste and produce construction material. You can also produce some algae that have the CO2 going through the water, and you can produce some algae stuff. So we want to be able to retrofit the coal. If you got to get rid of the coal right now, you got a problem because you're still dependent upon coal. But we can retrofit, and then as the price of solar and wind come down, which is now coming down, so many places in the United States are saying that the price of wind installed and the price in solar installed is comparable to the price of coal installed.
Yeah.
And especially if we have carbon tax, that makes it even more so. But we haven't done the carbon tax yet.
So for the solar will be it, people are saying.
It'll be a lot of things.
A lot of things.
You're going to have clothing that, like you'll have some clothing with electronics, all right? So where's that electricity coming from the recharge? From your body motion and your body heat. So you may be able to make electricity by moving around and by your body heat with different kinds of sensors and so forth, which can run maybe your charge couple device on your contact lenses. It doesn't need much electricity, just needs a little bit. So that can be created by your body. So we'll have extremely decentralization from that on your body all the way to community projects. Way off in the future, maybe, we don't know yet, maybe we'll use orbital satellite systems, but we'll see, because the price of other alternatives is coming down enough on the Earth, we may not need to go to that direction. But that's a backup. If we need to have a large amount of electricity that you can make equally available to everybody on the planet, that's one advantage of solar satellites around the Earth. Just like your telephone, telephone access is equal, or in Sudan, it just goes up and down to a satellite. So we could do that with energy as well, but that's a little further in the future.
Yeah, energy. When you think of energy, you think of transportation. What would happen to the transportation with the self-driving cars and the drones, and there will be so many jobs.
Oh, well, but we'll go back to that distinction of
Again,
work and job. I
Okay.
can be in a self-driving Uber.
Yeah.
So I don't even necessarily even own the car, right?
Yeah, you don't have to.
So I can
own
be
a
in
car.
this self-driving Uber, and I can be doing my homework, learning how I can speak Chinese, because maybe that's part of the work that I have to do right now. All right? So I may not be communicating to a job, I may be communicating to a job, but so I can, that frees me up again. It's a good example. It frees me up, because if the car is self-driving, why do I need to be like this? So what's the best use of my time? Like this, you're watching the thing? No, I can be doing something completely different. So the inside of a car can be like a little living room, a little office.
That's right. There can be an office. You don't need to have a large engines. You don't have
Which
a
means
lot
that
of
all
moving
those
parts
that used to be made by people, those jobs there also go away.
Yeah.
And then the restaurants where they used to have lunch, they also have problems. So there's a cascading of this unemployment. That's why I'm saying it may be like this sort of a curve hitting later on.
With the self-driving cars, restaurants will go?
Not all restaurants. What I'm saying, let's say you're a truck driver, all right? That truck driver is now a robot.
Right, yeah.
Well, the truck drivers would stop at this restaurant.
Right, that's right.
Well, that restaurant was dependent upon truck drivers. Well, if there's no truck drivers, that restaurant's out of business. Well, go back, and there's a great example in New York City, before the automobile. Most of New York City was a lot of horse manure.
Yeah.
A lot of horse manure. So that all went away. We got new pollution, but that pollution went away. That's why we got to anticipate ahead, so that we don't create new pollutions. Right now, we didn't forecast ahead on the Industrial Revolution, and then we got industrial pollution. We also didn't forecast well on the Information Revolution, because we now have a lot of information pollution. A lot of crap goes in and out of people's heads that they don't want to have in their heads. So we should think together as a family, like, as we go to the next stage, okay, what potential pollutions could that be, and how do we prevent that before it starts?
So your future's formula, agricultural era, industrial era, and information age, And there comes conscious technology age. What is it, and how
Conscious
do we have
technology.
to
yeah.
prepare for that?
Okay, that's good. Two questions.
Yeah.
All right, the first one, conscious technology age, is when the distinction between the built environment becoming intelligent with artificial intelligence and your body becoming augmented with all kinds of intelligence, so that the two of them are a continuous flow. So that where you start or leave off is not clear. You're totally connected. It's the old mystic idea of like a oneness. Well, this is a technological backup to the oneness of humanity. Now, second part on how. That's where Buddhism comes in, I think.
Oh, okay.
Because we have great prejudices in the world. And one of the great prejudices, in my view, is between the technocratically oriented and the mystically oriented. Now, I define a mystic in a very simplistic way. If your first reaction to solving a problem is to share consciousness, then you're mystically oriented. If your first response is to share a rule or make a technology or whatever, then you're technocratically oriented. Now, we're all part mystic and part technocrat, but we tend to be more of one than the other, as do societies as well. But what we need to do is we need to get the technocrat and the mystic to have a conversation. We have to figure out how to take the mystic attitude toward life and the technocratic organization of life, put them together so that and that's how I think the conscious technology will work well if the mystic and the technocrat come to some kind of synergy. If they're still polar, then we'll design technology that does not enhance consciousness. And the consciousness folks won't take advantage of the technology. Right? We want that to be a good yin-yang, a good harmony. We want to make a harmony there.
So, well, we covered quite a lot. What would happen to religion? Do we have religion? And, I think with the life expectancy, longevity goes on, people do not really lean on religion so much. What do you say?
Religion is hard to forecast. It's hard to forecast. It sort of depends to some degree on your view of how the universe works. Right? Whereas technology is a lot easier to forecast because we know how technology works to a large degree. But religion was the first organizing principle of society. Then government started to organize beyond that. The example I gave before was, Napoleon took the crown out of the religious leader's hands and put it on his own head. Right? So they're saying like, I am state power, I am moving beyond. Well, religion's still there. Corporate power now is moving beyond government power. And individuals, we'll see, may move beyond corporate power eventually. But each of these are still there. They still have roles. You see all those different ages. You talked about agriculture and industrial. You'll still have them. It's just where's the growth going on? The world is engaged in an inter-religious dialogue now. The Dalai Lama is one of the leaders of this activity worldwide. So religion is now, for the first time, interacting. Before, if you were an Inca and you had your religion there, you knew nothing about Confucianism.
With the 3D printers, it's been 30 years now, and we can print quite a lot. You can have a bioprinters printing your whatever liver as well as a heart and eventually, not currently, but there are a lot of ideas and practices and some sort of new skills and new technologies. 3D printer will actually eliminate all these industrial manufacturing jobs, work.
Yeah, a lot. There's one that I mentioned at the conference I came here to speak to. There's one coming up next. That's coming up next year with Hewlett Packard.
Multi-jet.
Yeah, the jet fusion. And the idea is that it has 30. It's a printer about this tall, and it has 30,000 nozzles that can spray over 300 million drops a second. That precision is so good that it can now print a metal linked capability that weighs 4 ounces but can hold 10,000 pounds. Now, our regular way of manufacturing can't do that so easily. So the precision of manufacturing will be incredible. And you could get maybe 10,000 of these printers, stick them out in the desert somewhere in this massive area, and 3D print all kinds of things. So it's an amazing industrial production capability.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay the 3D printer and the robots to tend them and make sure they're working okay.
Yeah.
It's
Sand
a new
is
day.
plentiful, and you can print sand to make something. Yeah, that's a Hewlett Packard. That is 2017.
They're supposed to be commercially available next year, that's right.
Yeah.
And there's some competition. There's a couple others coming along as well. As a matter of fact, I suspect Koreans are going to be coming in on this too. I hope so. So we'll see how it goes.
So quite a shock.
That's right, because we had the early... Cause the
manufacturing revolution.
Yeah, because to me, the Hewlett-Packard one is the first big jump. Because the other, we had all this sort of slow motion stuff for the plastics, and it was nice, it was entertaining, and you had high price ones as well. There's some metal, but they're way outside the reach of the average person.
Yeah.
But these kind of new printers coming up are extremely powerful, and the cost will start to come down. So the communities can afford to buy them.
Yeah. So if the community can afford to buy them, they have 1 or 2, maybe 1,000, you can print your own, so that outsourcing will be dead. Insourcing world is,
right.
And you will think about, trading, exporting, importing. Those will be gone. Why do we import, export?
Gone is a big word.
Okay.
It'll dramatically reduce.
Yeah.
We may come up with wholly new things. Like, for example, there's an awful lot of trade in coffee and tea, but we really could make our coffee and wine. We could make all those things locally. We know that. But we still want to import the different Asian teas in the United States and so forth. So there still may be people who want to export and import stuff. But the requirement that is the only way to get it, because of cheap labor, the idea of cheap labor, I mean, China's got a lot to think about right now, and they're thinking about this, because the advantage of cheap labor goes away. Because a robot is even cheaper than cheap labor. I mean, in the long run, after you've paid back your investment.
And also, people are sick and tired of all these politicians and the parliaments holding up all these, laws and regulations not passing quick enough.
Yeah.
Some people are saying that the parliaments or parliamentary systems or whatever, or we call it National Assembly, will disappear or gone, or some sort of other systems may emerge.
I don't mean to be picking on England. But the England still has not only the Queen, but it still has the House of Lords. It has a role of discussion and, national. They're not like doing the action.
They're not efficient though. AI can replace them.
But their role was more one to. It's like a neutral, not neutral, but it's almost a neutral zone for discussion of the great issues of England, and the United, UK. So that's a role that they have. The action is obviously the Prime Minister's office and so forth. So a lot of these functions, we're so used to saying A is replaced by B, but a lot of times it's not. A lot of times A is still there. It's just B grows on top of it, and C grows on top of that, and then D grows on top of that. And then they have to accommodate each other. All right? So I think that's a more useful way of saying it. And the reason I say that also is tactically. You don't have to defeat A in order to create B. You don't have to defeat the current political system to create new ways of organizing polis, new ways of organizing people. We may be able to do a lot of things that nation states used to do by just self-organizations with the means. We have the means of now. We have communications means, production means, intelligence means, all kinds of means we didn't have before. So that people and groups of people can grow beyond that. And it doesn't mean we have to get rid of this. It just means that this can grow beyond it.
So with all these changes you are sort of forecasting, do you have some sort of methods or methodologies to do this?
Yeah, we have a series called Futures Research Methodologies, now 3.0. It's about 1,300 pages. You don't have to read all of it. But it documents a lot of different methods. The basic methods that the Millennium Project uses, one is environmental scanning, keeping track of change. Collective intelligence takes it to the next level of capability. Then we do Delphis to pick people's brains around the world, and we'll cross-impact some of those different trends to get the right questions for the Delphi. We can use futures wheels to like expand our awareness of something as well. And then we use a State of the Future Index to pull it together for a country or for the world. For example, we do the world one for since the year 2000 or so. But there's no right way to do futures research. There's a lot of different methods. People are inclined to use one method or a set of methods and another one. That's fine. But it's wise to use several methods to cross-reference them, because the weakness of one method can be compensated by the strength of another one.
What is the strength of the Millennium Project? Because it's a global, or because you use the methodologies? What?
So one of the strengths of the Millennium Project is you may have 3 or 4 contributions. I don't have to take everything from you. But you may have 2 just ideas, no matter even whether you're right wing, left wing, up wing, down wing, doesn't matter, atheist, theist. You may have a couple. So how do we take the best, no matter where you are from, and slowly let people pick and bring them together? So I think one of the strengths is our ability to do global futures research that's intercultural, international, interdisciplinary, and we sort of accept that we don't know enough to tell you you're wrong. But we can put your view right next to somebody else's view. So if you go to our global future system, you look under climate change, you look under parts per million goal, you'll see the argument for 450 and the argument against 450, the argument, et cetera, and so forth. So I think that's one of our strengths, is inclusion and coherence. We provide coherence to global change, whereas most think tanks pick parts, so they don't give that same sense of coherence.
Like Buddhism in Korea was very, very powerful, like Christians in the West. But with the sort of, low fertility rate in Korea, which you know very well, not many people are going to the temples and all this. They may they're worried, basically. What are the strategies for the Korean Buddhism to again flourish? And do you have any idea? Can you think of anything?
I would be a little presumptuous to give advice on that. I would just share some thoughts, but not as a futures, but as a thoughts. Why does one have to be in a temple to be a Buddhist? Why does one have to be in a church to be a Christian? What is it that they're supposed to do? They're supposed to be right in this world. How are you to be right in this world? Well, if you have the freedom to be right in this world and not follow what that boss said or follow what that boss said, then maybe the value of being right livelihood, right this, right that, and so forth, maybe that has an ability to manifest itself in an individual economy of self-actualization that we did not have before. And that doesn't necessarily mean a person has to go to a building, but maybe they can pick that up in books, in television shows, and all kinds of other practices, because we now have a world conversation going on about what's the purpose of life. We're beginning to have that conversation, because if people are freed up, they're also freed up to think. And what are the logical questions to ask? What's the purpose of my life? What should I do between birth and death? What's useful to do? What's unique to me that I can do to fit into that? How do I get my dharma and my karma together?
Yeah, my idea is that Buddhist monks are here to advise people when people are in trouble, when people have worries. They go to temples and they meet the Buddhist monks to give them advice what to do. That's why I come in here to tell them that they have to learn about the futures. And, they have to advise right. They shouldn't tell them to go to a law school to be a lawyer because AI may soon take over. or
if they're a lawyer, then they learn how to write the AI program as a lawyer. Invest in what replaces you.
Anyway, Buddhism has to learn futures. And emerging technologies and emerging new societies and all the other movements around the world.
When I was writing that book, Future Mind, many years ago, And I wanted to get the attitude of Tibetan Buddhism on the idea of conscious technology. So the Karmapa Lama was in Washington, D.C., using where I had the Committee for the Future, by the way, before. I'm using my old office as a chanting room. And so I said, I want to interview somebody about this. So I was introduced to the Kalya Rinpoche, who was the teacher of the Karmapa line. And so we began talking almost without words, and getting into and it became very clear, his point was, as long as you have the Buddha consciousness, it doesn't matter the technology. How you're using the technology dependent upon your consciousness. Right? So it's not consciousness versus technology, it's consciousness with the technology to make that use right, and vice versa. So, as a matter of fact, if you go to Future Mind today, you'll see a quote from the Kalya Rinpoche in there about that.
That's very interesting. What sort of advice to Koreans, general public?
My request would be that the audience engages you in ways that we haven't thought about yet, to create some workshops, to think these things through, to engage Korea into a conversation about its own future, what should be the long-term strategy, and a way to change it as you need to through time.
There comes the power of Buddhism,
Yeah.
because there are many, a lot. Some sort of percentage of Koreans are Buddhists. So there can be an idea.
Yeah.
In Korea, we have a problem at the moment. We are going restructuring of shipping and also iron and steel sectors, and as well as a platform. People are losing jobs. Quite a lot of them laid off, and they are some sort of government control over for their debt. They have a certain amount of debt that they are going through, and what do they have to do? What do we have to do for those losing or collapsing industries like previous industries?
Right.
Iron, steel, shipping, and all these. Korea was sort of strong.
Well, if you want a general answer of an industry, general answer, I would say that the area of biology and synthetic biology and all kinds of biomimicking work, that whole kettle of fish, so to speak, that whole large area is, as best I can tell, going to be a large growth area. So I would suggest that the more that gets invested into, like I just saw that the investment, 30% tax incentive for the larger business as well coming in for the income tax. So I would put a lot into that, to develop that as an industry question. The specific one, as we were talking about before, is you can get all this education in the world almost free for almost anything you want to learn. So find out what's turning you on and learn it, and then find out what market's out there for you to do it. But that's an individual answer. But as a country answer, in the same way that you moved into industries before from agriculture, you may want to move into biology after the new kinds of art. There's a lot to be done in biology.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a very interesting conversation. I think we have to close. 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
행동하지 않으면 미래학자가 아니다라는 말을 제가 했습니다. 미래는 너무 멀리 있기 때문에 미래학자가 미리 행동하지 않으면 사람들이 따라오지 않거나, 그죠? 이해하지 않습니다. 현재의 가치관으로는 도저히 상상할 수 없는 미래들이 우리에게 다가오고 있습니다. 앞으로 박영숙의 미래예측 여러분들이 많은 시청해 주시면 저희는 더 즐거운 이야기들을 매일 가지고 오겠습니다. 감사합니다.